essentially I was put up for adoption at birth. I have a twin sister. We're fraternal twins.
Okay.
And both of us were put up. We were adopted together, but even before even being adopted, I had been in 4 foster homes within 4 months, which had a great impact on how I attach to people or don't attach to people. And which then led into being adopted at 4 months old, at which point I'm told that I was a crier, and I'm also told that I was not easily soothed by the typical things that typical children would be soothed by.
Okay.
And so I'm also, and I can't say that I remember all of these things, but I'm also told that the abuse within the adoptive family started when I was 9 months old. So there was no chance for me to get around it.
Right.
And it continued until I left that home. I went to go live with my dad, and then I had a horrific experience on a paper route in which I was raped by someone who was one of the customers on the paper route.
Okay.
Because no one had ever spoke to me about, don't go into somebody's house, because that just wasn't anything that anybody had spoken to me about. Nobody even spoken to me about what it meant to be a woman, what it meant to be. None of that was spoken in our household. Not knowing what else to do with me, decided it was just to plot me into an apartment here in Ann Arbor. So in one sense, yes, it's much better than having just been thrown out into the street, but inside of me, it was no better.
Yeah, because now you're on your own, right? Now
I'm on my own. I'm only 15. I'm only in 9th grade. There's nobody to typically do what you would say to guide them or this, that, or the other. So I graduated out of high school essentially with a 6th grade reading level, and not even knowing how to write at all, basically.
So it's the basic school skills, but there's also life skills, right? You didn't have a mentor. You didn't.
No,
have
I was very, very naive at that age. In terms of, I remember my first son's father. He was older than I was, and I asked somebody, why is he trying to talk to me? He's married, and the reason I assumed he was married is because he had a child. So that tells you how naive my mentality was, that I just assumed if he had a child, he was married. The biggest way that it affected me is that I have had a hard time leaving the house since my children sort of like entered into teenagehood.
Okay.
And I think that a lot of that was because I had male children, and even though they were my children, because they were males, I was afraid of them.
Okay.
Because of my experience of having been raped, because of my experience of what I had gone through. So it was sort of like you have these children that you have to take care of, but at the same time you have a very big you're afraid.
Understood.
And they're at that age where they're, coming, I don't want to say they're coming back at you with objection or, disagreeing with you because you're the parent, you're setting the standard, you're setting the rules, and they're coming back at you. And that was extremely frightening for me.
I'll bet.
And I think that part of the problem was that also how it really impacted me that I've learned since then is because with trauma, we go into fight, flight, freeze, submit, or whatever modes. And for me, in my early years, I was a fighter. Not a fighter in the sense that I went out and it was in the streets fighting, but I was a fighter in the sense that I would yell, scream, to try to get my point across. And I think it was in 2006 when I sort of had this awakening, and I was like, I don't want to be that person. So what do I need to do to stop being this person? Because I don't have control over it, because I would try to have control over it. So it wasn't like I was just out of the clear blue sky. I could go like 2-3 weeks without ever, and then it would just seem like there would come a point and I would blow up. And at that point, I realized, something had to change. And I spent, the years raising my sons trying to change what had happened to me
Yes.
within the abuse. This is not working. Something has to give. I don't know what I need to do, but so I started taking parenting classes. I started taking, but during those parenting classes, one of the things that I found was that a lot of the parenting classes were assuming that you had a certain income. And because of that, I have today really worked on developing a nonprofit. I mean, right now it's just as a business, but it's going to be turned into a nonprofit called Fight for Success Family Empowerment. And really what I do with that is I work with families to help them in whatever area, because every family, number one, is unique. Their resources, their connections within the world are all different. Some parents, unfortunately, will have to leave their children at home at early ages.
Yes.
So one of the things that I can come in and do is help them to figure out how to structure their home in a way and to set rules and limits in a way in which that is a factor in their household. Because and to help them to understand that you cannot, if you're not there to monitor something, you can't create a consequence for something that you're not there for. So you can set your home up in a manner in which, say, they have a drawer for snacks or they have a can for snacks, but you can set that up. But the other thing is that a lot of times you will see parents say, well, I don't have well, this child did this and this, and help them to understand that every child has a different personality.
Yes.
And they're coming to you. So one child might easily sail through something and another child might be totally afraid of the whole entire process. The organization will help all families. It doesn't matter what their income level is. But I want to be able to go in and help families that are seeking that type of service instead of having it forced upon them. But I want to be able to similar, sort of like if people have seen the show, The Super Nanny, that comes in, evaluates the family, watches them in action, and then sort of comes up with a game plan for the family on how to set structure up or set behavioral goals and whatnot. So the aim would be not necessarily to work with the family, long term over for years. It would be, I could work with them, the longest I would say would be a year.
Okay.
But it would probably be more like 4 to 6 months, because you do have to have a period of time in which you're building a rapport, and nobody's just going to pour out to you.
No, you have to build relationships. Yeah.
And so that actually is very, very important. And for me, I'm not looking at it that I'm the end-all be-all. I'm looking at it that I'm going to help the parents to formulate a plan to assist them, and to then also possibly connect them with other services, to talk to them about counseling, because that can be a very touchy subject, especially in the African American community. Now, I have the unique experience of having, yes, I'm half black, half white, but I was raised in an all-white family.
Okay.
And so I have a little bit of a different outlook on therapy and how to do it.
Yeah.
I currently am in therapy, and I still am in therapy, and it's not, therapists have therapists.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
You have to
If somebody wants to learn more about what you're doing and how you can help them, where would they go? Is there a website or a phone number? How would they reach you?
There's a phone number. They could give me a call, because it's 734-512-6209. And we are almost in the process of having our website up. We're not quite there, because I started it out as a home health agency.
Yep.
And I think I started it that way more out of fear than But I've also, you know, in turn, in between that, I've made contract with families and been working with families. And so now I said, okay, it's time to, you know, take that leap of faith and say, you know, let it go and let God guide me into where I'm,
Yeah. Well,
where
you
the
ne- you
next
never know
steps
what's
are.
gonna happen.